What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Social Standard Podcast. My guest today is Christian Brown. He is the CMO and co-founder of Gluey. And we are actually both in the influencer space, but kind of come at it from different angles. So I'm in more marketing strategy services side of things, and like managed services, if you will, whereas Christian actually provides a whole tech solution with a creator marketplace. And he's really focused on Gen Z. So what we're going to talk about today is the focus on changing behavior, how social media, influencer marketing, and the platforms are really influencing our buying process. And we're going to do that all through the lens of Gen Z, which is a big time Christian specialty. So Christian, what's up? And welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jess. Yes, thank you very much for having me.
So let's just get into it. I mean, what is, I guess, for just to kind of paint the picture, like why are you so focused on Gen Z? What is it that made you want to create a company that's really targeted at that Gen Z audience?
So I would say like it's very native. So our whole crew and team, even from like a founding ideology, came from like a Gen Z Los Angeles influencer marketing earlier stages, like the transition, kind of like post Vine to YouTube, more YouTube to Instagram, very much pre TikTok. And so that was like very, very focused in the Gen Z space. Also, as we are Gen Z from our core, that was something that it was something we knew very well, and it was happening all around us. And so as we went out to build our side of things, right, for brand and creator and our platform, we sat there and we built a platform on web and iOS, and we looked at it and said, well, how are we going to break the equation of chicken and egg? So we knew we needed thousands of brands to join our platform and very many more thousands of creators. And so we went right for what we knew, and what group we knew how to talk to and work with and what felt most comfortable to us, which was Gen Z. And so we looked at like ourselves even, and as users online, as users of apps, of users of platforms, as people that want more opportunity in like the tech space and the creator economy and everything beyond those walls. We just knew exactly like how to speak that language. And so we started there and then we built upon that, and everything else has been quite a fun time from there on up.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I think that's wise, right? Like you can speak to the audience because you are the audience. I think that's really
Right.
where a
Yeah.
lot of the magic happens. So tell me a little bit about Gen Z. I mean, what is their buying process like and why is that so different? And I will paint the picture a little bit because a conversation I had earlier today, we were talking about how this is one of the first times that we have so many generations in the
Hmm.
workplace at the same time. And so obviously Gen Z being the youngest, all the way up past the boomer, there's going to be a lot of misunderstandings and different preferences for communication styles and doing things differently. And so I think
Hmm.
that's likely why we see so many articles about Gen Z, right?
Right.
But tell me what your POV is.
So I'd say like it is a bit disruptive towards like a traditional marketing advertising realm, because when we look at the traditional lens, which I actually never even had gone all the way into from a fundamental or a work perspective, because we went straight into this after the university experience. But everything I know from like being a true advertising student at my core was you go up into different agencies and you work for larger brands that are doing like very multidimensional cross department ad buying, right? Which comes from like out of homes, then it comes to your digital spots and your print.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in print, are you in TV or are you in magazine or are you a newspaper? And so all of those things exist in like a true physical world. And then those would impact like the buyer journey and the touch point play on different generations. Whereas for us, I would say like in a true Gen Z light, you have X amount of money and you spend X amount of time over the course of the day. A lot of times we spend a lot of time on our phones. And that could be anything, right? You could be playing mobile games, or you could be on Instagram, or you could be sucked into the TikTok funnel, or you could be watching YouTube video after YouTube video. And then you might go home in the evening and you might play games on your computer or your Xbox, right? So you're still engaging in a social sense, or you go and you turn on TV, but traditional cable doesn't really exist in our realm. It's all streaming, or it's YouTube hooked up on your TV. So there's all these like little micro experiences that we engage with social media. And so I would say that going back to the concept of limited financial resources and buying power, and then maximized amount of time in the social sphere, once you add those over each other as circles, you get a Venn diagram. and in the middle sits the social selling and social buying world that we primarily live in. So I guess to like wrap it all back in, if you want to actually like go and reach Gen Z, you're going to have to do that in a social sense, and you're going to have to do that in a digital formation. Otherwise, it's not even that you're not in the conversation and you're not top of mind, you're not in mind. Like you're going to completely miss such a vast majority of people
Yeah.
because those exterior traditional touch points are not things that we typically engage with nor look at of value like they were once looked at in the ad
Yeah.
buying realm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you've got to be on social media to sell first, and I think that's why we see a lot of brands that are Gen Z classics, right? Like a
Hmm.
Taco Bell, a Chipotle, an Elf Cosmetics, a Tarte Cosmetics. We
Yeah.
see all of these brands leaning into social media in huge ways, and you can even see it in their org charts where social is getting a bigger and bigger piece of the budget, right? And
Hmm.
it's also they're getting a place at the table, so it's no longer
Right.
here are your cut downs, right? It's okay, let's involve social, let's figure out what we're doing. Um, and let's make sure that everyone's got buy-in here. So you can
Right.
definitely see it, right? In those instances, even I mean, I think probably something that we've all seen at the time of the recording here, like North Face had not too long ago just did their crazy surprise and delight where they got a helicopter and dropped off a brand new jacket to a customer at the
Yeah.
top of a mountain, right? So we
Yep.
saw that. We've seen the Stanley Cup stuff,
Stanley. Yep. I was gonna say
yeah.
that was the day later.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
we've seen all of these sort of surprise and delight moments that are targeted, super, super targeted at Gen
Hmm.
Z. And those companies have set themselves up really well for social listening and to jump on those moments, which I think is crucial for Gen Z. But I also think that it's going to become more and more crucial, not just for Gen Z, but for others. I mean, it's already encroached, I think, pretty heavily into millennials, but I do
Hmm.
see it getting broader and broader. So I think that this is part of a overall trend where social media is becoming marketing, just
Absolutely.
digital marketing, right?
Yeah. And to throw an anecdote in here too, like when you speak about that concept of like some definitely household brand names, but even brand names that are social first that have become household names, Stanley, for example. Stanley is an absolute um, super success in the keeping your water cold and or hot space from the mug realm and the mug industry. And so with them, I think that they play so heavily on social because they play into social listening. They know that everyone's talking about them online. They know their ICP. They know how to relate to them and they know how to be there, right? Stanley's social team, incredible, right? When they went out and worked with their CEO within 24 hours of that viral video coming out of the woman's car accidentally blowing up and unfortunately blowing up, they picked up 200, 300, 400 million impressions just first 48 hours. I mean, to sit there and to say that one organic play that an organization can run back in the day was going to bring 400 million unique impressions from an engaged audience that people are going to actually talk about not only the next day at work, but in real time in a digital sense. Like 10, 20, 30 years ago, that would have been very hard and would take months and months of planning. But it's people that are working quickly and efficiently on social teams that are very adaptable and ready for change. And they're like super,
Hmm.
super, I'd say problem solvers, right? Because there's a problem being your brand is in the news. That's a good thing. And the problem is now, how do we capitalize on it in a way that touches our brand tone and identity, relays our message, and also encompasses who we are as a brand and our values, all in a single social post. And that could
Hmm.
be written on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook. You can do it in a blog. You can do it in a TikTok video, Instagram feed post, Instagram story post, YouTube long form, YouTube short, right? There's all these formats you can play in, but it all has to boil back down to like, what's your brand? What are you doing? What are you saying? Where are you saying it? And how are you saying it?
Yep.
And the anecdote I wanted to bring in there is that back in the day, if you were to like be an individual buyer or consumer of, let's say, like Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola were to send you a handwritten letter being like, let's say it's to me, like, hey Chris, thank you so much for liking Coca-Cola, and I opened it up in the mail and I pulled the package open, I would have definitely taped that on my wall, framed it, done something like really cool with it, right? And that would have taken them a lot of effort to find my address, to reach out to me, to write it, to print it, to mail it, to stamp it, all that. Now, in today's sense, and going back to how social has creeped up generationally, so my grandmother loves Instagram. It's like her favorite thing to do. Nothing gets by her. Every post, every ad, she eats it up.
That's incredible.
Yeah, her screen time on Instagram is probably higher than mine. But with that in mind, if and she knows how to post in stories and all that good stuff. She's posted and tagged brands, and like I've helped her. She's like, "Oh, I want to tag this brand." and like they can then go in and like it and comment on my grandmother's Instagram post. That like very mini interaction to her will like allow her to use social to now take that brand and associate the value of that brand so much higher because now she is literally engaged with them. And
Mhm.
it's just it could be a like, it could be a double tap like, it could be a quick comment. um, so it speeds up that like brand to consumer interaction in like a hyper vortex at scale. And I think that with the ability and the playing field that we now have, which is the social to consumer channel, I think that we're going to see a lot more generations engaging very much first with brands on social. And I think that
Yeah.
TikTok's doing a great job with that and bringing that forward. Instagram, short form video and content. It's just a whole new world we live in from a buyer and engaging with
Yeah.
brand level.
Well, and I think it's interesting too to, just to note that like the North Face and the Stanley stuff, they both happened on TikTok. And I think that, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but I think that TikTok needs to also lean into supporting those moments and those virality things because the reality is like TikTok's not a place to build a community. At
No,
least not at scale, right?
no,
And so
no.
what brands do to foster the feeling of community is to jump into those conversations and sort of elevate them, right? That's how
Hmm.
you show up where they are on TikTok.
Right,
On other
right.
social platforms, you can build your community. At least for now, I think we'll see where Instagram goes. But you can build your community there a little bit more effectively. But on
Hmm.
TikTok, you got to play the game, and the game is don't worry about building community. Worry about interacting in the right spots. It's the new version of Twitter's old surprise and delight.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. No. I mean, I'd say that's spot on. I mean, TikTok's it's a content funnel. You know,
yeah,
it's a surprise every time. It's a surprise and sometimes not a delight. You can put out 100 pieces of content in a week, and if the algorithm isn't built for it and you don't have a good foundation of followers, it's going to sit and it's going to sit and it's going to sit. And then you're going to
yeah,
be down in the dumps and you're not going to want to do it again. And then you're going to get one video that gets 20 million views and you're going to staff up a massive TikTok team and they can never replicate it, right? It's a formula that is as confusing as mentally possible.
yeah. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, right?
Right. Yeah. Roller coasters all the time.
Yeah. And I do think that's why a lot of brands are hesitant to like do too much on TikTok, but I do think that that's another way or another reason the influencer marketing on TikTok is your best friend
Hmm.
for brands, right? Because you don't have to go out and create all that content yourself. You can leverage the influencers, sure, post it, repost it on organically and natively on your channels,
Right.
put paid behind it because the goal is to get in front of your audience. Doesn't
Hmm.
matter if you get in front of your audience because you've built a following on the platform or because you are renting an audience with an influencer or with paid. To me, I
Right.
really don't think that there is I don't think that there's a I don't think that's like one way to do it on TikTok, but I don't think that is the only way, right?
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. And with going back to even like our last conversation about how people are buying, I think that
Mhm.
TikTok plays a massive role in that, because TikTok has become, and there's a lot of data that will support this, the new SEO funnel. So the concept of reviews, a lot of times, Gen Z in specific, and it's creeping up through the millennial data, will show that when going to buy a new product, mainly from a brand that you are less familiar with. Obviously, as people do, you review it. You search it up. How do people like me like this product? That search and that experience of are people like me liking this? Is this a good product? Is happening a lot more on TikTok. And so they're leaning in from an actual technical perspective and enhancing their searchability and SEO for products and
Mhm.
services. And it does have potential to be the next Google model of show me if I would like this. And I think that
Mhm.
that's incredible and scary at the same time because no one would ever think years back that someone would take over search in Google's realm, right? Like they owned
Right.
the court, let alone ran the court. They owned the facility that the court was in. And now TikTok becoming such a monster player in many, many spaces and verticals, it's changing the way people are even going down to like, wait a second, I can see a video of someone talking to me about the product that I'm holding in my hand at, let's call it Target or the grocery store. You can actually get a full piece of validation or anti-validation in real time from a third party. Whereas back in the day, you go to Target, you're gonna read the very nice, pretty review about that product that the brand is paying to put in front of your face that is
Mhm.
skewed directly towards the behavior change model of making you buy it, because that's what
Yeah.
advertising is. So it's
Yeah.
like we have the ability now to strip down a lot of walls of tradition and get down to the core of like what are humans saying about things in human speed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. And what I really love about what you said is the review feature and functionality, right? Because I think that we've all sort of been through it was, Google has reviews, Yelp has reviews, Amazon has reviews, but then there are all these campaigns to go out and to skew the reviews. So
Right.
then now these are not that trustworthy, right? They even have to load in verification that someone has actually bought the product, it's putting a review out,
Right.
right? People are giving gift cards for reviews, they're giving discounts for reviews. So while I don't necessarily I don't think that's a bad approach. I think it's smart.
No.
And you should be doing it. The reality is like TikTok is kind of that green pasture for reviews because you, as far as I know, at this moment, they do not have a scaled operation in which you can buy keywords
No.
outright like you can
Nope.
Google. Now, is that coming 100%? You better believe it is,
Of
but it's
course.
not there yet. And so um, it feels authentic, if we can even use that word anymore now that it's word of the year for, as we were discussing one dictionary.
Yes.
Um, it feels right. It feels unbiased, right? And I think
Yeah.
that is incredibly powerful because Gen Z is all about that. And then I think the other thing that you said that's really important is it's not just a review from one person. It's a review from someone who looks like me or
Right.
has shares the same values, is similar to me
Values.
in
Yes.
somehow, right?
Yep.
And I think that is likely why I read the other day about Pinterest is trying to put some sort of like a filter on their search so that you can look at people who have a similar body type to you, right? Because Pinterest is very fashion, female heavy. And I
Wow.
thought that's great, maybe, but kind of weird. But now that we're talking about it through the lens of like reviews and products, that makes perfect sense. Pinterest is just me
Of
tooing
course.
TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're
Mhm.
gonna do so through AI image generation models and machine learning and everything else. And what's gonna happen is they're gonna build a aggregated master CRM of everybody that looks like ICP of company A, and they're gonna sell it
Yes.
back to them, and it's gonna be a hyper focused ad buy down to the size of your waist, which you cannot do anywhere else on social. Which, like, obviously, if I was making a pant brand, yeah, I want to go after everyone, and I want to play that game. Um, so yeah, I mean, platforms play into this stuff all day long, and they play into
Yeah,
the concept of like, how do we get your product or service in front of the absolute right eyeball, so you pay a
sure.
premium for it, so that you don't pay a premium on the competitors that are driving low CPAs.
Yeah, 100%. That's so every time we talk about this, I feel like it is so terrifying that people would be willing to give so much of their personal data to do this. But at the same time, if there's value, I mean, I guess,
Sometimes it's not even data, I mean, people talk about data all the time, and then I hear people say like, "Oh, but I did," younger people say, "I just did my homework in ChatGPT," and it's like, "Oh, I just did this, I just did that, I just submitted this new AI thing," and I'm saying, "Well, you're feeding the data machine. Everything
yeah.
we're doing is the data machine. Every time you open Instagram, you are
Hmm.
feeding machine learning algorithmic messaging, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
binary or in true code, into the algorithms for you. You're doing it for
Hmm.
yourself, which actually is
Yeah,
in benefit to you because
it is.
you're teaching it what you like, so you get the most out of your experience. In turn, you're teaching it what people like you like, which helps the system. In turn, which shows what people of different niches like, which will then show what people on Instagram like. And like it, that's why everyone has quote their own algorithm, and people on TikTok say, "Oh, I'm in this algorithm," or "I'm on this side of TikTok." You're just machine learned that you are like X, Y, and Z person because you
Yeah.
act like them.
Hmm.
It's That's
Exactly.
all it is.
So this is like a total sidebar here, but a conversation I was having with my team earlier was how how long until this happens, or do you think this will happen? But for the exact same reasons as you lay out, at what point do you think platforms are going to start to provide discovery and curation um, services for brands when it comes to influencers because they have all that data?
Yeah. From an identification perspective.
Yeah. So say, whatever Taco Bell says, I want to work with like, these 15 gamers in the state of Washington who have, you know, uh, I don't, who like spicy food and, you know,
Oh, so that exists
have a
already.
cat.
Yeah, that
Y-
exists. That exists
but
on
they're not, but
Meta
they
and
haven't monetized, like they have that data, but they haven't used it for brands and influencers, right? Because it would be, to me, it's like, oh, this would be a really simple dashboard or tool that they could sell to a brand so they could go in and find the exact right detail for the influencers in their campaigns. And then that's a reason, if the influencers opt in, if you opt into Instagram, say, yeah, Instagram use my data for brands to do this, they could just provide that service so easily, couldn't they?
well, anyone that's listening, you could just make an account on Gluey. We do the exact thing.
Well, but that's
But
that I know, but and
yes,
even I'm saying this as not like oh, this is a problem for Gluey, or oh, this is a problem for the social standard, because we will move and pivot and do all the things around that. I'm
right.
just saying, like, it's possible that they do something like that because they do own the data, right?
So yes, they do, all day long. And not only do they own it, they give it out. So through
Hmm.
the API partnership programs, partners actually can get access to data like that. Like that's how we pull a
Yes, of
substantial
course.
amount of data. But
For now, until they
the
decide that maybe it's too much and they shut it off, right?
so yes and no, because let's go back to like the concept of their goals.
Sure.
So Instagram, let's say Meta, let's put Meta and TikTok up as like the two companies we want to talk about. Meta
Hmm.
and TikTok both have the same goal. Get as much content into the platform as possible. More content means more stuff to watch. More stuff to
Hmm.
watch means more experiences and higher retention. More retention means machine
Yep.
learning, which means more algorithm to say the next person that joins, they can automatically ask a few questions to that person, and based on those answers curate a feed of people to follow and reasons to never leave that app. So the
Right.
next person that joins TikTok, you can spit out a feed that is exactly based on their 15 likes and interests,
Yep.
but that allows them to continue scaling. The more content they have and more eyeballs they have, the more ads they sell, the more revenue they generate, the more people they hire, the bigger they scale,
Sure.
and the
Yeah.
faster they take down the next guy. And so from an API perspective, the reason that they like harnessing a lot of partners in that sense is because what you guys are doing, what we're doing, what so many teams in this space are doing for the better of both creator economy and the algorithms is creating more engaging content.
Hmm.
And so if we can actually be the houses, teams, technological backings, whatever it may be, to create engaging content, we are actually feeding the algorithm bigger and faster than your average user. And so I think that the reason that they've tried, so Meta has tried this. I think it was pre the acquisition, so it was as Instagram was a little more solo.
Hmm.
They try to
Hmm.
do an Instagram creator network.
Yes.
TikTok also has their creator
Creator.
marketplace.
Yep.
Um, and I've always been very surprised that these have never taken off and they never
Hmm.
gained traction and creators never liked them. It really blew my mind that they were never able to hack that formula from both the brand and creator perspective. But I think that I don't know. Like, I don't know why they never went for it big time. But I
Well, I mean,
think,
I understood why in yesteryear they didn't, right? Because the reality is they were chasing ad dollars, and
right.
the paid media is always going to outpace the influencer. But now that the creator economy is growing so quickly and outpacing a lot of traditional spend, I just wonder if there's that, is there a point at which they decide, hey, maybe this is worth our time? I'm not saying they're going to do it well. In fact, I don't know that they will. It's just one of those things that it always kind of pops into
Yeah.
my mind every once in a while to say, is this something that we're going to compete with in, 3-4 years? I think the
Yeah.
answer is
And it's
anyone's best
always
guess.
right.
Yeah.
It's a growth dependency. It's right. Like, what are the opportunities and threats to play after? The opportunity is build the biggest ad buying network. The threat is what if the monsters build one, right?
Hmm.
Like, what if
Yeah.
they just do it too? And so it's, just playing nice and keeping your eyes open at the playing field.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's well said. So let's get back to shopping behaviors on
Hmm.
TikTok. So I think one of the more interesting stats that I read specifically about TikTok lately is that they're going to put in $500,000 to subsidize shops in the U.S. So we
Yeah.
know that this is a big priority for them. We also know that they are toying around with blocking links to all
Hmm.
e-commerce sites on the platform, which is something that Douyin, which, if you don't know, is the
Hmm.
Chinese version of TikTok, has already done in China. And they're also very focused on live stream shopping and replicating the success that we've seen in Asia in the US.
Yep.
So those are the three big sort of shopping, excuse me, shopping trends that TikTok is sort of trying to force down everyone's throat. I
Hmm.
think they're doing pretty well with TikTok shops. It seems like that got up and running in a bumpier road, and they've definitely combating some fraud issues and all that sort of stuff. But it seems like that's doing pretty well. Um, Live shopping, kind of getting there. I don't really
Mm.
know necessarily that is. I don't know that we're there yet. Um, but what do you think is sort of the next success that they're going to see with whatever form of shopping it is on TikTok? Where do you think that's going?
Storefront. I
Hmm.
think that e-commerce storefront. Shopify is one of the greatest companies to ever exist, I would say. I absolutely love them just from an all
Yeah,
around
no, I
perspective, right?
agree. I agree. But you're
Yeah.
not sponsored by Shopify, right?
No, 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 not no, no, no. I thought it was sick that they for Black Friday
Yes.
they bought the Sphere in Vegas. Like they're a cool team, right? And then
Yeah, they are.
they've allowed millions of people to create with ease, right? When I was younger, call it like 15, 16, I made some of my first ever stores on Shopify. What you can make a business in like 2 days,
It's
right? That's
easy.
really
Yeah.
cool, and it's
Hmm.
accessible to people. And I think that where they're gonna struggle is building the bridge between social commerce because the storefronts live and they're well, not solely, they're primarily promoted via social and on
Hmm.
digital
Hmm.
because very little amount of Shopify stores are actually brick and mortar. And so, how are they going to bridge the gap between what's happening via the algorithms and via the platforms and then their own ecosystem? That's going to be tough. So I think in order to kind of dominate over that, we're going to see TikTok, and then as Meta always does, they always wait to see if something works on TikTok, and then they replicate it, and they try to
Yep.
say they did it first, which I find hilarious. But I think we're going to see both of them come out with the ability to actually
Hmm.
create your own shop in great detail. So Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, a lot of those like web
Sure.
builders, they're fun, they're engaging, they're interactive. If you know
Yeah.
CSS and if you know how to build really cool websites, you can have a lot of fun. That lacks on TikTok because it's pretty much just black and white. You can just scroll feeds, you could buy
Correct.
stuff, and there's no third dimension of experience to it. And I think if they can nail that and they can actually allow for the personalization of a shop to then mimic like the niche, the tone, the identity of a creator or of a brand, they're going to add an element to that that could take out why you would need a link in bio or why you would need to kick to a URL. If they can bring that all into one house in their true platform, I think that could be ginormous.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, and I think that's likely where we're headed.
Hmm.
Definitely feels like we're a couple of years out of being able to see any sort of like real traction there. But
Right.
I do see them kind of laying the breadcrumbs
Me too.
to get us over to that station. I think the question is like, if I'm a brand, do I really want to do that? Because how do I maintain my first party data, which is
That's it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is the gold standard in today's world.
Well, yeah, because if you, let's say you're a brand on the forefront of innovation in a consumer packaged good, right? We can just use a specific new morning drink, for example, right? And your go-to-market strategy is social first for Gen Z audience. And let's say that you were to pick that route that we just identified, which would be like a TikTok native shopping experience. You don't actually own your customers' data because you probably give those rights away in the terms and conditions of building that shop on
Hmm.
TikTok. So you no longer have access to it. So the next person that wants to make a competitor or mimic product of yours or make it in a different format, they can go in and buy that data from TikTok the same way that the next guy or girl can.
Exactly.
And so like yeah, and that's a big issue with a lot of social selling is you lose a lot of those like real true identifiers. Um, and then you just become like a part of the mix. And I think it's tough for brands that want to break ice and go to market and be truly innovative because it's so easy to sell something so similar to everybody else because it
Hmm.
really just breaks down to like, okay, what's your TikTok strategy? If you can beat the next page, you win. But like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's like what we
It's
saw.
cool.
That's like what we saw with Facebook and DTC, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing where it was like all of a sudden it's really cheap to do um, dropship stuff, and then you can
Hmm.
also like the targeting was easy, and Facebook was very pro SMB. So really, all
Hmm.
it mattered was brands, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the main thing. But almost I can see that kind of happening here, but I don't know if I'm a brand. To your point exactly, I don't know that I'm willing to give up all of that information, right? You've got to have a brand. You got to have something else. Like, yeah, it might be easy to kind of start on TikTok, but if you can't quickly turn that into a standalone e-com site and brand, you're capped. You're capped, I
Exactly.
think, pretty
Yeah.
significantly in terms of growth.
Well,
So,
yeah, because you can't expand and then taking it all the way back, then you'll never be able to grow an organization or a company or even a brand that can play in any of the traditional spaces.
sure.
I
Yeah.
think Duolingo is a really cool example here because traditionally they weren't TikTok native, right? Like
Hmm.
Duolingo has been around for a long, long, long time. It wasn't until they took the owl, they had the owl costume, and they took over TikTok in the earlier days of brands on TikTok, and their whole team has won a plethora of awards, and I think they're one
Sure.
of the coolest teams to do it on TikTok. But seeing that they gain such mass traction, and their like user acquisition flows on TikTok just absolutely exploded. They were bringing millions and millions of downloads, and their product-led growth strategy is so good. They're getting tens of millions of dollars off these downloads from TikTok. But at their core, they're not a TikTok first company or app. They are a language based app in all over the world. And so I think it's cool because now they can take a step back. And I saw they announced a couple of days ago that they're doing a Super Bowl ad.
Hmm.
And so they're taking it all the way to the top and they're going to the number one most prominent ad buy there could ever be. And they'll spend a couple million, they'll do the 15 or 30-second spot. And I'm willing to bet that there will be TikTok content and the owl in that, which will really bridge the gap between like full native identity of like where were you once, where did you play, which is TikTok, and where are you now, which is back to being standalone. But if you don't have the foundation of living outside that walled garden, and having a true ecom organization or an app or whatever that didn't start in these platforms, then you can get out. But if you build it and you're stuck there, it's really hard to climb out.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's probably where the majority of people will be,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Especially if you try to outgame the system. Plus, I mean, you think you're also informing TikTok, which in theory could do the Amazon
Hmm.
the similar path that Amazon did, where they start to like compete with some of their own sellers, right? They have their
Right.
Amazon brand. They can outbid them in terms of like keywords and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff as well. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, we'll see on the TikTok shops, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I get why TikTok wants to make it happen, but I'm just not sure. Now, the other thing that TikTok has come out and said is that videos that when people are in the app, that supposedly 50% of their time is spent on videos over 1 minute.
Hmm.
Now, I say supposedly because I never really trust exactly what TikTok says, right? Um, they don't provide a ton of support in terms of like what, metrics and all that sort of
And
stuff
sources. Yeah.
and sources. Yeah. So I don't know if
Sample
this is
sizes.
yeah, exactly. I don't know if this is their marketing and PR initiative to try to get people to do videos longer than a minute.
Yeah.
Um, but they definitely want to move towards longer form content. And I
Hmm.
think one big reason for that's got to be the fact that, like, yeah, they've saturated the mascara and the lip gloss market and
They've
the quick,
taken. They
quick
own it.
stuff.
Yep.
Yes, but if you want to sell a TV or a speaker set or like something that's very expensive, you need a longer review,
Hmm.
right? You need to be able to go more in depth. And what does that sound like? YouTube, right?
Hmm.
So TikTok is definitely definitely trying to. I think they're trying to be YouTube. I think that
Yeah.
they've done some interesting stuff, but I think they've also created habits in global users that may actually prevent them from being able to do that.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I think that the content cycle on TikTok, if you look at going back to Gen Z people and even
Yeah.
a younger crew, I've seen younger individuals on their phone on, let's call it TikTok like things. So TikTok videos, Instagram Reels, or YouTube Shorts, the short form
Hmm.
content, endless doom scrolls. I've seen people doom scroll all day long. Or if you're on a train in the city, you just watch people just, they're not even there. They're just boom, 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 boom. And the speed in which people consume this content is actually mind blowing because it's almost as if they're not thinking, they're just like absorbing
Hmm.
like a sponge. And sometimes you can even ask someone, what did you just watch? I just watched you watch 10 things, but did you actually consume anything? They're like,
Yeah.
I was just on TikTok. What is that blanket statement? And so to your point, I agree completely. I think that they're going to have a real tough time ever getting out of the 15 to 30-second quick hook, quick video, everything else, because people don't really want to watch 3-minute videos. And if they do, the data will show they're going to leave TikTok, leave Instagram, they're going to open YouTube, and they're going to sit down and watch a YouTube video.
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
only way to get them to not do that is to offer those long form videos in TikTok. They relaunched a smaller sized creator fund specifically for long form content. And that's why you'll see a lot of large creators building longer form content. Snapchat does that too. They want creators doing longer form content and more
Sure.
of it. Instagram's going to follow. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because for a long, long time, TikTok came directly after Instagram. And now Instagram kind of caught up, and now both of them are going to go after YouTube, which most people wouldn't have thought the YouTube beast would ever be taken down, but two on
Yeah.
one might be tough.
Yeah, well, the thing that I think TikTok has over Instagram in this particular instance is they have already tried to integrate somewhat successfully with televisions, like with
Yeah.
TV, right? Like
Yeah.
so many people go, there's a YouTube app they go on, they watch long form video because that is how
Hmm.
you consume on a larger screen. TikTok at least has laid the groundwork there. I don't know too many people that just go on TikTok and watch it on their TV yet, right?
Yeah.
But that could definitely happen.
Yeah.
I think
There's no
I don't
reason
know.
that they won't make a TV app. Maybe they start with Roku and distribute through there through a partnership, and then they branch out to all the other smart TVs, and then they go make one for Xbox, and they go make one for the PlayStation devices, and then they make a very nifty actual app on your computer that you're watching horizontal long form content on.
Yeah.
I don't see it being out of the scope of realization.
Yeah, no, I don't either. But I also think that where Instagram has a leg up on TikTok is that people are used to watching longer videos on Instagram than they
Hmm.
are on, because even if you think about, like, it's not the natural product, but think about stories. Like you
Yeah.
would sit there and watch, even though you're tapping, you're engaging, you could still watch a story, listen to it, well, listen or watch a story that could be 2 minutes long. And that
Yeah.
is something that people absolutely will do. Not to mention, I know they tried IGTV and that didn't work, but I
Yeah.
think that was more of a timing issue and
Hmm.
less of like, can Instagram do this? I think they're a little bit more set. I think they're set up a little bit better there. And I do actually think, at least from what I see, Reels is set up like Reels tend to do better when they're a minute or maybe
Yeah.
a little bit like longer. And so that's kind of an interesting mark. And then, YouTube obviously comes along and says a minute maximum. So it feels like all arrows point to 1 minute videos, right?
Hmm.
No matter where you're at, 1 minute seems to be a great length that works well on all platforms.
Yeah, but if we can get to 1 minute, I think that that'd be really good because we can actually share information that isn't
Yeah.
the size of a popcorn kernel. Because I
Right.
think the 4 to 14 second videos, you can't really get enough across, right? Like, especially
No.
now with even building digital ads, whether you're working on the creator side or building them from like a true, video origination perspective. But to cram a lot of information and a unique value prop into a 7 second video,
No,
unless you're
not
just
possible.
throwing a product up in the air and showing it into the camera and you're on to the next thing, it's very difficult. But
Yeah,
like
and I think
when,
you could look at TV, right? TV is 15, 30-second ads.
right,
And that's that. And then to your point earlier, when you're flipping through stuff, there's no downtime, there's no processing time,
right,
right? At least with a little bit more of a long time span, it allows your brain to actually absorb what you are hearing and seeing and now reading, right? You
yeah,
watch the video, you're hearing the voice, but you're also reading the caption. So you have three possible ways of getting this information into someone's brain. You just need a little bit longer to do it.
exactly, yeah, and I think that that's good. And on TikTok, it's so, I guess it's like people are biased towards the numbers, so
Hmm.
it's way harder to get. Let's say like two pieces of content were to be deployed into the feed. One of them hits the feed with like let's say it's placebo effect, one
Sure.
million 1.1 million likes, 357,000 comments, and then 65,000 shares, versus no, 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 like none of the above. That first video, despite the quality of it, is going to break the multi-million mark because of the placebo effect that everyone has. Like, oh, this must be good because look at those numbers. And I
Hmm.
think that that's just so wild, and so many people can consume so much faster, and then you can like, comment, and share because it's only 15 seconds. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, of course I'm going to share this with my group chat of 40 people because
Right.
they all have 15 seconds. A
Yeah.
5 minute video, I share those a lot less frequently
Yeah. Unless it's really, really good, right?
or
Yeah.
targeted. It needs to
Hmm.
be like, niche to like
Exactly.
one friend, whereas like one friend group might love a specific blanket joke or meme that just gets thrown out there, and you move on to the next thing. But like,
Yes, exactly.
yeah, content is
Exactly.
content is quick. Like
Yes,
everything is quick.
it is. It is. And poor, God bless Vine. Thanks for paving the path, but sorry it didn't make it for you. But I think,
Miss it every
this
day.
this this to me sort of sets me up for my next question with you. Let's talk a little bit about dark social and how Gen Z shows up in the dark social channels. I mean, now we
Okay.
have Discord, we have Patreon, we have Slack, we have so many different forms of communication. Facebook has even said that, WhatsApp is kind of the future of Meta, of Facebook, right?
Hmm.
And so to me, that's interesting. So talk to me a little bit about how Gen Z communicates over social.
It is mind blowing. I think it's like mind blowing, mind boggling, and very interesting to watch from like a
Hmm.
being involved perspective. And so even when we break down like my age group, so I'm 25 right
Sure.
now. So even like back when I was in high school, I was one grade above the Snapchat kids, meaning like I
Okay.
was 1 year out from people that were very native to communicating on Snapchat. And then, like in and around that age and a little below is the Instagram DM like generation. But
Hmm.
within our block of Gen Z, there's a lot of tiers to it that had different social platforms that were their first primary form of communication, none of which were iMessage and none of which were WhatsApp. So like a younger crew might still, a lot of like high school, early college people communicate nearly exclusively through Snapchat, whether it's
Hmm.
actually in like the take a photo, add a caption, communicate, or if
Yep.
it's just like straight up messaging and it goes away or you save it, whatever. Um, Other groups direct message on Instagram, and that's their like form of group chat. Other people are Twitter group chats. Other people go off and build these large group chats on Discord or on Slack. Um, Other people are chatting directly through there's so many terminals.
Yeah.
And I think that like the concept of iMessage being the one and only place to communicate, as a lot of people normally would do, is completely out of the picture. Like there's no way to grab everybody to communicate in one place. And I've even been places and I'll say, hey, what's your number? And people are like, what? My number? Why would I give you my number? And I'm like,
Right.
I don't know. Sorry.
It's what's your handle, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, what's your Instagram? And so,
Hmm.
funny enough, like as we've gotten a little older, like the running joke is, well, oh, just add me on LinkedIn. Like we message people to make plans on LinkedIn now,
Yes, I
just because
love
it's
it.
like it's a channel to communicate.
Yeah.
Same with Instagram,
Hmm.
but sometimes it's like, oh, do I want to add you on Instagram? And then we got to be connected forever. So,
Yes.
there's so many options to it that aren't just the single. What's your
Yeah.
one phone number where I can't see anything about you? It's like archaic almost because
Hmm.
on Instagram, this is a really good example. You can see a lot about someone, and this could go very good or very bad. And, you could perceive them in ways that they might not emulate in real life, or you could think too highly or too lowly of them, or you could think just right
Right.
about them. But you can actually like get a sense for how they talk and how they feel and how they walk and how they act, and you can literally see who they're friends with, right? That
Hmm.
followed by and then insert who they're followed by function. That
Hmm.
was like a mutual friend calculator, an aggregator of a feature. I've used that all over the world. I'm like, oh, you know, so and so and so and so, you must be from LA. Or like, oh, you're from New York. Or, oh, you spent time in London, right? You can just kind of match things up. You could never do that with a 10 string, 10-digit phone number.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. And I think it allows for more communication in more formats, and it allows for a more connected world
Right.
because I don't know, connecting the world is cool. I think that that's for the benefit of
But
humanity.
how do you think the platforms are going to monetize that?
It gets them on. If I need to open Instagram to talk to someone, 99% of the time I'm gonna look at a few
Hmm.
photos, and of that 99% of the time, 50% of the time I look at more than 10. Of that
Yeah.
50%, then I might post a story that more people watch. Like as long as you can get them in and get that retention to
Yeah.
maximum numbers,
Yeah. It's your
they're happy.
gateway drug to time spent in app going up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's what they're competing for is
Yeah.
time on screen. They're
Hmm.
competing with each other for eyeball time on screen per
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget that where they're like, oh, you can't put ads and messages. Well, first of all, you can. It's a
Yeah.
question of like, are they going to do it or are they going to just let it be kind of like free and clear? Right.
Right.
And I think probably for the time it'll be free and clear. But if you look at like Snapchat, I think that's probably a really strong leading example of a messaging platform that was never able to monetize the messages.
Right.
Right. They've added a lot of other things. They've added stories, highlight, everything, spotlight to message and to do. But it's just weird that everything seems to be kind of converging all of a sudden. And I
Yeah.
still think Snapchat has a ton of room to grow. And I think that if they do it right, I do think they can own the private, like one to one or like group messaging in a really fun and like interesting way.
Yeah. I never count them out.
Yeah.
A lot of people do count them out, especially from the ad buying side. Fine, whatever, count them out there. Don't count them out
Yeah.
as a platform. I think they do good work. And I think that
Hmm.
they're fun and they are one brand that has always known their audience. They
Yes.
never reached too high. They never went left. They never went right. They grew with the audience growing. And as
Yeah.
they grew, they picked up the next generation of users. And
Yeah.
I think a way that no one else knew how to do because everyone wanted everything everywhere all at once. And Snapchat was like, no, we want to be Snapchat.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I respect them for that.
Yeah, and I remember when I was living in LA, and Snapchat was still like early days. I remember
Hmm.
they had a very like low key out of home billboard where you
In
didn't
Santa
even it didn't
Monica,
even
the OG
yeah,
Santa Monica presence. Yeah,
yes, exactly. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, they know their audience
they're
because this
cool.
is yeah, they're cool. They were a cool platform, and I still
Yeah,
feel like they're pretty cool. I know to your point, the ad buying world doesn't give them as much credit, and I think that they'll struggle a little bit on revenue, but I don't know. I think they have a lot of opportunity ahead of them if they can play it right. They can be up there. They can be a little bit more in line with TikTok and Meta
yeah.
if they do the messaging game right.
Right, and I think that they're always going to play a game that's Gen Z focused, and I like that a lot
Yeah,
about them because I spend a lot of time on Snapchat. They have like cool
same.
little channels and stuff, and I talk to a
Yeah,
lot of people on Snapchat. A lot of my friends
and
from
listen,
school I
nobody
have
does
on
a
Snapchat.
filter. Nobody does a filter like Snapchat.
No, the OG dog filter. Are
I
you
mean,
kidding me?
I know,
It's
but they're the best. They're the best.
oh my
So
God, you open your it's like that's
yeah,
cool.
but it's just funny stuff, right? And
Yeah,
do good fun. I don't know. I'm always thinking like in terms of filters. Like if I'm creating social content, like I love to have fun on Snapchat. I think TikTok does a pretty good job.
yeah.
Instagram filters, garbage. Honestly, they're just not that good.
Garbage,
They're just
garbage.
not that good. It's like
Yeah,
I need to look like I'm 19. Okay, that's what I'm here for.
yeah.
So
And
TikTok can help
sometimes
me with that, and so
I
can
want to see
Snapchat.
what I'm gonna look like with a mustache, and sometimes I want
Yeah,
to put it on my girlfriend and see what she looks like with a mustache, and that's cool.
exactly,
And then you save it,
exactly.
and then you just it's fun. That is fun.
Yeah.
It's
Snapchat, there's a lot of
it's
joy in
cool.
Snapchat, for
Yeah.
everything from the way
Yes.
that they interact to the color schemes that they've chosen. I mean, yellow
Yeah.
is joy, it's a joyful color. So they do a
The ghost
really
is
great job
cool,
there. The
right?
ghost is
Like
cool. That's right. Yeah.
yeah, they've been cool, cute, fun. They've been Snapchat. So
Yeah. Exactly. So
let's not count them out. All right. Let's
no,
if you have
I
some extra
don't think
money,
so. Exactly.
give it to, throw it around. Maybe let them catch some. Give the ghost some.
Yeah, get the ghost into college. Let's do it. We'll start a campaign. Yeah, no,
That'd be fun.
I do think that's interesting. And I mean, the messaging game is just to me that's sort of what I'm looking at in the next 3 years as who's gonna figure this out the
Hmm.
fastest because I do think messaging is just as important as a lot of like the live stream shopping to your point
Hmm.
again about retention because if you can't it's great if you can figure out how the tech and everything to do the live stream shopping but if you don't have the people there
Then
doesn't matter.
it's a shop and there's no shopping.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's just a noun,
Exactly.
not a verb. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting, and I'll be curious to see how Meta follows on shops if they
Hmm.
do. Yeah, I know obviously they've had Instagram Shop, but I feel like they stopped promoting that. It kind of
No,
went
they
away.
cut
It
it.
lost,
Yep.
yeah,
They
and it
cut it
lost its
early
little.
23.
Okay, they
Yep.
did.
Yeah.
So
It was pandemic based. It was the middle of the NABAR pandemic based project. And then they cut it Jan 23 because
okay,
I mean, it was a bad thrift store. It wasn't even
yeah,
like Depop. It was way worse.
it wasn't set up very well. That is definitely for sure.
Yeah.
But they've leaned more into messaging too with the broadcast channels.
Hmm.
Zuck's on there, Moseria's on there. They're spouting stuff off daily. Threads, obviously,
I
is
knew yeah, I knew you were gonna say. I don't even want to get into it.
I know. I kind of feel the same way about it
Yeah,
too.
Threads
But
tanked.
yeah, it did tank, but it's another one where if they can hang on, it
It
might have
probably
some
it
value.
costs them so little to run that thing. I bet. Because
Exactly.
it's all
That's how.
hooked up. It's hooked up through their own systems, and so like they did a good job linking it through foundationally
Yeah.
and getting it into like the mainstream and connecting it through. It was cool that like they were like we're gonna build Twitter and whatever they did it. I just think
Yeah.
everyone kind of proved they're like we already have Twitter.
Yeah, but I
We
think
don't want like
it's always a
we don't
question of
want
like
this.
how, will people stay with Twitter? That's the question,
Right.
right? Twitter will make or break Threads.
Yeah, but
If
I don't think I think if Twitter dies, Twitter dies. I don't think Twitter dies and Thread survives. I don't think
interesting.
no because funny people don't like Threads. And
But where do all the hardcore Twitter users go? LinkedIn?
oh, no. They'll find a spot. Don't you worry. I'm a hardcore Twitter person, thin and through.
Oh, you are. Okay, so
They
where would you
will.
go? Where would you go?
I would just look for the Batman symbol in the sky, and I'd say, "Where are we going?" So there would be something. Someone would build something. Sam
Yeah,
Altman
I
would
mean
build
they've already
something.
tried, right? Mastodon, Blue Sky. They're already
Yeah,
trying in a lot of
like
different ways. Threads.
someone like OpenAI would be like, "All right, we'll just devote a couple months to this. We'll give you something to play with, and then like we'll just take your data in exchange." I don't think Twitter's
Maybe.
going anywhere. I'm like nearly positive that X, let's call it, will survive, whether it's self-funded or whether um, people just, let it run. I don't think that it's going to do good on advertising, but I think it
Yeah.
was too big of an investment from Mr. Musk over there to let die. And I
Yeah.
think he likes tweeting too much. It's his favorite thing to do.
Yeah. No, listen,
I love it.
I'm with you 100%. I find not that many people agree with me there, but I do think that Twitter has a lot of potential. There is a
It's
tremendous amount.
Twitter. It's
Exactly. And
Twitter. I
and the
I I will never read. Okay, I'm not gonna. This is gonna sound super Gen Z. I don't have a reason to read a newspaper because I have Twitter. I've always had Twitter. It's been my
sure.
news source my whole time in high school and college. First thing I do when I wake up, last thing I do before bed, basically Twitter, right? Like it's my first form of social consumption because it's true news. I can see what's going on around me. I can see what's going on in my city, in my state, in my country, in the world I live in, right? And I can see it in real time and I'm fed information within like microseconds of it happening. And
Hmm.
then I can go back home and my mom will be like, "Oh, did you see blah blah blah?" And I'll be like, "Oh, do you want to see 400 pictures of it?" And the highest ranked conversations that happen on this topic,
Yeah.
ranked from most engagement down because it's one click on Twitter and it's literally trending right now. And then we can see the true discourse of topics that go out, into the news stream and stuff. But like, it's real. Like
Hmm.
it's
No, I look,
information.
look, I'm with you. I know. I actually am not a Twitter user, but I still believe in the platform. And I still believe it's going to be around for a while. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of back and forth because it makes for good news and fodder in the press.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's
And
and with
it's a discourse trampoline,
yeah,
like conversation and content just like gets boom elevated like a
totally.
launch pad.
Totally. So let's talk real quick. I want to talk. I know we're getting close on time here, but let's
Yep.
talk real quick about Gen Z, and LinkedIn. I know you're Gen Z. I know you're on LinkedIn. You're doing
Yep.
the thing. How do you see Gen Z using LinkedIn in the next 2-3 years?
Okay. This is a really good one. So I would say, okay, so LinkedIn is the new, I'd say it's like the new Facebook almost, right? So like
Yeah, a lot of
people
people
that
are
were
saying that.
people that were early on Facebook. I got on Facebook when I was like 12, in like
Nice.
2014. And it feels like that, right? Like you get to find people and see people and like search people you went to high school with, you grew up with, or like find random people that you want to follow, right? It's a very good like search and discovery tool, that's hyper focused on industry and posts. But LinkedIn as a from like an algorithmic play is very cool because it'll blast out things very specific to your likes and interests in a work sense. And now that Facebook's totally gone, people no longer have like a place to really post everything they're like very proud of, I'd say from a work sense. Because Instagram's more like you post about your life. And a lot of
Hmm.
people want to separate their work from their identity on Instagram or vice versa. So I think LinkedIn plays that next card where it's like, okay, you can have your life on Instagram. Now come over to LinkedIn and share your work life, share what you're
Yeah.
proud of, share who you're working with. I post pictures of me and my friends on LinkedIn, right? Because like that's the work we're doing and it's fun stuff and it's things we love. And I think LinkedIn's like super, 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 super sick. They have a really cool creator program, tons of cool feature functionality for creators and for Gen Z people that want to find news, that want to talk about news, that want to engage with news. As it is at its core, it's a great place to find a job. It's a great place to communicate about looking for jobs. People are hiring. People are, they're having all these conversations about something which is so important to us, which is work. And I think
Yeah.
that seeing that as you get older, about 60 to 70% of your adult life is spent working.
Hmm.
You need a place to talk about that and experience
Yeah.
that and be inspired by others working and others that are reaching milestones that you can visualize and get to and do all these things and post along the way. And so I think that LinkedIn definitely for me and a lot of people I know became like the new Facebook or the new Instagram
Yeah.
for a professional setting. And so I really hope that a lot more people are looking at it like that rather than looking at it like, oh, this daunting, scary place. I need to have this super cool headshot that
Hmm.
my internship boss is going to look at one day. It's like, no, dude, just get on there, post cool stuff, be happy, be proud, make some friends, add some people you want to chat with or look up to, and shoot your shot, shoot a bunch of messages, pitch slap people. It's a fun
Yeah.
place. It's cool.
100%. I'm with you. I'm all in on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
obviously.
LinkedIn's cool.
It is cool. And I also think that Gen Z is very savvy in the personal branding space. And
Yep,
LinkedIn is a ripe opportunity for Gen Z to figure
all
that out.
day,
Because, I mean,
all
you want to
day.
talk about getting a job, show up to that interview and say, I have 15,000 followers on LinkedIn and I am all about posting about your
Y-
company.
Yeah, and I want to make this thing cool. Yeah, yeah, you're
Hmm.
gonna stand out, of course. And then once you get
Yeah.
there, you go post a bunch of cool stuff, and then the company looks cool.
Yeah, and I think it's like, you know, how if you look at Hollywood and where how they were casting actors and actresses was when it would come down to it, especially on the reality TV side, it was like, well, how many followers do you have? How can
Yeah,
you help promote this? I mean, there's
yeah,
no difference between that approach and like what I think future employers are going to do with LinkedIn.
all day long because I think that employers are gonna want to share their company values on LinkedIn so that the hiring
Yes.
process is easier and the HR process is a little softer. And if you can have
Yeah.
a company culture that people look up to on social, I mean, talk about like how easy it's going to be to get an applicant pool that is qualified
Yeah.
for jobs. I mean, that is going to
Exactly.
speed up things that have never existed in pre LinkedIn or pre COVID, pre remote work realms.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's right. It's like with Gen Z, Instagram, personal, LinkedIn, professional, TikTok, fun, entertainment, maybe
Yep.
some shopping, and then Snapchat messaging.
Yeah. Yeah. And
There
there'll
we go. Of
always be a couple more up, down, left, and right that jump in the
course.
mix. They
Yeah.
come, they stay, they don't, but
Hmm.
like it's fun to experiment. We like experimenting. We like
Yes.
checking out new things. We
Yeah.
like building new things. We like buying new things. There's everything's new for us. A lot of, you know, boring traditions kind of in the past. We want cool
Yeah.
new stuff right now.
Well, I think that's right. And I mean, the attention span is shorter, which means that because there's just more going on, right? And so I
Right.
think that that's more interesting. But I love Gen Z's um, desire and like flexibility just to try something new, just for the
Of
sake of
course.
trying something
Just to
new.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it looked cool on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Go
That
for
is
it and do it.
cool.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's a behavior change model. That's what
hmm,
advertising is. That's what social media is. That's what the world we live
exactly.
in now is. It's you can alter someone's behavior and their wants and needs and desires through 15-second videos. Imagine telling that to a caveman or cavewoman. They'd be like,
100%.
"What?
Yeah.
What?" Yeah, so
Yeah.
no, it's cool. I mean, where we're at right now in social is it's incredible and where we're going and the speed in which we're developing and evolving, not only from a platform perspective but from a communicative human perspective, and like the amount of verbal mobility we have and just like these
Yes.
spaces we can exist in, whether it's digital or physical, and the identities and auras and things we can have about ourselves. Those didn't exist years ago, and I think we're only going to be able to express ourselves more, not only with the products we buy and the brands that we identify with, but as like individuals, both in a social sense and an identity sense, and then lastly in an in-person sense.
Yeah. 100%. Well said. Um, I think you nailed it on the head. Well, look, Christian, this was a great conversation. I really
Yes.
appreciate you coming on, giving us your insights. And we will be on the lookout for what you guys are doing over there at Gluey. I think it's gonna be cool stuff. So,
Yes.
congratulations on your success thus far, and would love to have you back just to talk a little bit more about Gen Z maybe next year.
Yes, Jess, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for anyone listening, and we shall chat soon.
Sounds good. All right, see ya.
Awesome. Bye.